Good morning, sailors, and happy Wednesday. So, Mr. Richards was kind enough to answer some of your questions that you wrote in your reflection on Monday. And unfortunately, last night, I wanted him to be able to answer them in person on a video, but he had a meeting, and then the presidential debate kind of took up our evening. So, I am here and I'm going to read his responses to you because he did type them up for me yesterday morning. So, all right, we're going to do that together. Our first question is from Kalina Frederick. How stressful was it for Mr. Richards? His answer: it was not stressful at all. It was more of a fun adventure for the most part. Our next question is from Alden Suida Cortex. I didn't think that the Civil War happened in Muskegon? Question mark. Answer: many soldiers were ousted from the lumber camps and the lumber yards from Muskegon, Michigan. No battles were fought here, but many Muskegonites fought and died in the Civil War. Corden Twinnings asked, if you find the gold, do you get to keep it? I'm sure a lot of you have this question. Answer: that's a great question, Corden. Possession is 9/10 of the law. But the longer you study governments and how they operate, you'll see that government entities tend to be confiscatory rather than giving, whether it comes to your freedoms, your money, or a gold bar. It would go to court, no doubt, to be decided. Mosley's crew, Sarah Kim, where did he get all the primary sources? Answer: I found primary sources at multiple libraries, including the U of M Bentley Historical Library, MSU Archives, the State of Michigan Archives, Library of Congress, etc., as well as online with search engine tools. From McCaskey's crew, Ayana Carlisle. One question I have for Mr. Richards is, how far do the tunnels go to from under Muskegon High School? Answer: those tunnels go a long ways. Some of them have been blocked off, but you can see into the distance a little ways with a flashlight. They are pretty creepy. We had multiple old people tell us that their grandpa would just disappear the nights they had meetings downtown. There were even houses with elevators into the ground. From McCaskey's crew, Lucy Cooper. A question I have is, how did those people manage to smuggle the gold all the way to Michigan? Mr. Richards' answer: back then, the only way would have been by railroad. There were no cars or trucks. From Van Swole's crew, Eli Lewis. A question is, did he ever find anything else cool not on the show? Mr. Richards' answer: great question, Eli. I found a ton of cool stuff that was never shown on the show. Some of it was research that showed crazy connections between Union and Confederate generals after the Civil War was done, working on the railroads together, allowing them to control what they shipped and where. Also, did you know that after a battle was fought, men of the Masonic Temple from both the North and South would meet and hold Masonic funerals on the battlefield for soldiers of both sides that were Masons? Not only that, they would not knowingly kill an enemy who they knew was a Mason. So they would not knowingly kill an enemy who they knew was also a Mason. From Volkman's crew, Lily O'Brien, do you think that they might give tours of the tunnels underneath the school now that people know that they are there? Mr. Richards' answer: I highly doubt that anyone is going to give a tour of those tunnels. We had to sign liability waivers ourselves to get in there. If someone really wanted to go check out the tunnels, though, I bet I could get them into one. That wasn't the first time I was in those tunnels, if you know what I mean. From Dan Angelis' crew, Bailey Tornes. What is the craziest thing that you found? Answer: I found some cool skulls in the desert. Got to see some secret rooms in Washington, D.C., met some really cool people, and a bunch of other coins and metal stuff with the metal detector. Craziest thing I ever found, I cannot talk about. That's actually true, and I do not know what is that thing either. It's a secret. Jablonski's crew. From Jillian Dietz. What made you want to try to find the gold in the railroads? Answer: it's crazy the idea that gold from the Civil War ended up coming up through Muskegon as part of the, quote, rebel reward, unquote, for the Michigan guys letting the rest of the gold get out west with outlaw Jesse James and company. From Kuzma crew. Sophie Metler, a question I have for Mr. Richards is that do you think that Charles Hackley stole the Confederate gold? Answer. Charles Hackley didn't himself steal the gold. He was wealthy enough that he was able to do things such as build railroads, spurs, and lines right to his office and start a national bank, with other guys in on the gold plan. C. His wealth from lumbering helped him avoid suspicion from his other endeavors. Did you know he owned parts of 10 different banks in Michigan, along with multiple gold mines in Utah? Phillips Crew, from Connor Smiley. I have a question about how your dad has those coins from the Byzantine Empire and why he hasn't sold them and become a millionaire. Answer. Great question, Connor. The value of an item, regardless of any socialism or communism efforts by your government, comes down to capitalistic principles of, quote, supply and demand. That's why house prices are so high right now. I'm also a realtor who sells houses. So those coins you mentioned were very prevalent due to the sheer size and power of the Byzantine Empire, so there's too many of them for any of these coins to make me a millionaire if I sold them. Too much supply, still out something why diamonds are expensive. They are rare. Outweighs, I bet. Okay. Terpstra's crew, from Tyson Terpstra. Some questions are what primary source is the most useful? Mr. Richards' answer is my personal favorite primary sources are first-hand journals / writings of people who were actually involved in the events that happened. These can be challenging to find sometimes. From Richard's crew, Quinn Atticott, what proof do you have that Charles Hackley has gold mines in Utah? Answer, see attached. This was in a box in the basement of the Michigan State University archives. This document says Tonopah and Salt Lake Mining Company, and it's signed by Hackley and Hume. 1,000 shares of $1 for the Tonopah and Salt Lake Mining Company with some witness signatures. From Richard's crew, Grace Chosco, did Mr. Hume play a part in Hackley's bank? Mr. Richards' answer, Mr. Hume was 20 years younger than Charles Hackley, and he was hand-chosen to be Mr. Hackley's successor. Hackley had an adopted son, Charles Moore Hackley, who he was disappointed in because he only wanted to be a farmer. Mr. Hume shows up from the British Isles and was also a 32nd degree Mason and Knights Templar. Mr. Hume first was Hackley's bookkeeper, accountant. Then he traveled far and wide, Carolinas to Carolina, buying timber properties for Hackley. Then he was also part of the bank. He was intertwined with everything Charles Hackley did, although he was his own man. He was on the steps of the church every Sunday morning greeting people. In fact, the church he attended and donated much money to still stands today and has a giant stained glass windows dedicated to the Humes. Also, there's a stained glass window in honor of Robert Minty at that same church. Remember, General Minty played a role in the capture of Jefferson Davis. Hume came on the scene suddenly, a few years after the end of the Civil War. And lastly, from Mr. Cheney's crew, Cooper Freeman, Hackley was in a war. The answer to that is local newspaper columnist Tracy Lorenz once claimed that Hackley shot himself in the foot to avoid going to war. I researched the same archives and could not find this account. However, Hackley did not fight in the war. All right, guys, so there you have it. There are your answers to some very good questions. I personally went through and chose the questions that I felt like were the best, and just really excited for how pumped you guys were about Mr. Richards speaking, and I could really tell that you guys were into that. So that's awesome, and he was super excited to do that with us, so maybe in the future we can have him back again. All right, now what you're going to do is you're going to be playing a Kahoot quiz game, okay? And this is because tomorrow you're taking a short quiz during class, all right? And the Kahoot, a little side hint, is very similar to your quiz tomorrow. So if there's any questions you don't know, write them down, okay? Look it up after school or during class, and then you can know the answer for tomorrow, okay? Then tomorrow we'll play one more quiz game before the quiz. So you'll have plenty of practice, and I would not worry about it. I know you've got a lot of tests and quizzes this week, so we want to keep that in mind. And I think you guys will all do a really good job on tomorrow's quiz in social studies, okay? All right, well, enjoy the Kahoot. Have a great rest of your day.